When we think of ancient Egypt, we think of pyramids and mummies, but most probably one king who, despite reigning for only a short period, has captivated history and the world. Tutankhamun was the boy king who ruled Egypt more than 3,000 years ago, and he was a relatively minor pharaoh in life. But in death, he has become one of the most famous names in history. The discovery of his burial chamber in the Valley of the Kings in 1922 by British archaeologist Howard Carter was one of the most sensational moments in archaeology. The treasures found within the tomb gave the modern world a look at life in ancient Egyptian times, but also at their religion and what they did in death. But what was more dramatic of it all was what was discovered when Howard Carter and his team finally opened Tutankhamun's sarcophagus for the first time, and they looked upon the remains of the young king. What was found was remarkable, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. By the early 20th century, the Valley of the Kings near Luxor had already been extensively excavated. Many of the tombs of the great New Kingdom pharaohs had been uncovered, though most had long ago been robbed into antiquity. Archaeologists believed the valley had yielded all of its secrets. Carter, however, disagreed. He'd spent years working in Egypt, first as an artist and later an archaeologist. He had developed a reputation for being both meticulous and stubborn. Carter believed that one more important royal tomb remained undiscovered, that of Tutankhamun, a little-known pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, who had died around the year 1323 BCE. Tutankhamun was a mystery. His name appeared only rarely in the surviving records, and it was thought he may have died young, but Carter, supported financially by his patron, Lord Carnarvon, became convinced that the king's tomb was still hidden somewhere in the valley. For years, Carter searched without success, and by 1922, Carnarvon was growing frustrated with the lack of progress. He told Carter that he was ready to withdraw funding if nothing was found in one final season. Carter returned to the Valley of the Kings in November that year, determined to make a last attempt. And on the 4th of November 1922, Carter's team discovered the top of a staircase cut into the bedrock. Excitement mounted as the workers cleared away rubble and dust, and the staircase led to a sealed doorway, stamped with the Royal Necropolis seal. Carter knew that he had found something significant. He sent word to Lord Carnarvon in England, asking him to come at once, and together the two men prepared to enter the tomb. On the 26th of November, Carter made a small breach in the doorway and held up a candle to peer inside. Carnarvon, standing nearby, asked, "Can you see anything?" Carter replied with the words that would become legendary. "Yes, wonderful things." What Carter saw was breathtaking. Golden couches, alabaster vases, chariots, statues and jewels, all piled high in the antechamber. Unlike most tombs, this one appeared to be almost intact. Robbers had entered it briefly in antiquity, but the tomb had been resealed, leaving the vast majority of treasures undisturbed for over 3,000 years. In the weeks that followed, Carter and his team carefully catalogued and removed objects from the antechamber. Beyond it lay the sealed doorway to the burial chamber itself. On the 16th of February 1923, Carter broke through into the burial chamber. Inside, dominating the room, stood a massive shrine-like structure of gilded wood. This was, in fact, a series of nested shrines enclosing the king's sarcophagus. Each shrine was decorated with protective deities and inscriptions from the Book of the Dead, designed to guard the pharaoh in the afterlife. It took months of patient work to dismantle the shrines and reveal the stone sarcophagus within. When they finally lifted the lid of the sarcophagus, Carter found not a body, but yet more layers of protection, 3 nested coffins, each fitting snugly within the other. The outer two were made of gilded wood, and the innermost coffin, however, was something extraordinary. It was made of solid gold, weighing over 100 kilograms. This magnificent coffin was shaped in the likeness of the king himself. Inlaid with coloured glass and semi-precious stones, its arms crossed over the chest, holding the crook and flail, symbols of pharaonic power. Even among the riches of the tomb, the golden coffin was the most stunning discovery. On the 12th of February 1924, the lid of the sarcophagus was raised, and inside lay the 2.1 metre mummiform coffin of gilded wood covered by linen shrouds. These shrouds were rolled back, revealing the coffin portrait of the king and his face and hands in gold. The coffins were then opened properly in 1925. There was some concern the king's mummy would not be as well preserved as was first thought, and after raising the different lids, the mummy was revealed. Inside the coffin was Tutankhamun's wrapped mummy, measuring 185 centimetres tall. Covering the head and shoulders was a gold mask which depicted the king as a god, Orisis. This is today the famous mask we associate with him. Sewn onto the shroud were a pair of separate gold hands showing a decayed crook and flail. The wrappings covered the body were held by gold bands, and it was estimated that a significant amount of liquid had been poured over the body to preserve it. The resin used in the embalming process had hardened over the centuries, gluing the linen wrappings firmly to the bottom of the coffin. The body could not be lifted out without breaking it, so the body was examined in situ in the coffin. The examination took place on the 11th of November 1925. The wrappings of his mummified corpse were carefully taken and everything was photographed. The limbs were separately wrapped and were capped with gold fingers and toe ornaments, and on the feet were gold foil sandals. The body had to be chiselled out of the coffin, and later the hands and feet were reattached as they couldn't be taken out properly. To look at the condition of Tutankhamun's teeth, an incision was made around the inner edge of the jaw and across the throat, damaging the remains. This helped anatomists work out that the king was around 18 at the time of his death, with a height of around 5'5". The mummy was described as being greyish-white colour, very brittle and exhibiting numerous cracks, and there were other royal mummies which were better preserved, but none carried the grave goods and incredible artefacts like this. It was stated that Tutankhamun's head was shaved, and his eyes with long eyelashes were partly open. The nose was flattened by the damaging, and the nostrils were plugged with rolls of resin-soaked linen. The brain of the young pharaoh had been removed through the nose, and top lip revealed large teeth. His chest was covered in a number of beads, and the organs had been removed through an incision of around 3 inches near his hip during the embalming process. He had also been emasculated, and this was wrapped separately. Also discovered inside of the bandaging were around 150 items, including gold headwear, necklaces, sceptres, gold collars, bracelets, and incredible ornaments. Later X-rays were taken of Tutankhamun's head, and there had been significant decomposition from the time the mummy was first disturbed. Over the following decades, further testing took place. Even DNA testing was carried out, which showed that Tutankhamun had malaria, and that the most likely cause of death may have been necrosis of the bone tissue and leg fracture. It was also discovered he had a clubbed foot too, but this had been disputed. There are still today many theories about the death of the young pharaoh, but the discovery of his remains still evoke great interest over a century on. The discovery came at a time when fascination with ancient Egypt was at a peak, sometimes called Egyptomania. In fashion, art, and even cinema, Egyptian themes became wildly popular. In the tomb of Tutankhamun, it became unique because it was the only royal tomb in the Valley of the Kings found almost completely intact. For the first time, archaeologists could see the burial of a pharaoh much as it had been left thousands of years ago. The objects provided priceless information about Egyptian art, craftsmanship, and beliefs about the afterlife. Today, the treasures of Tutankhamun remain among the most famous artefacts in the world. Most are housed in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, through a new Grand Egyptian Museum near the Pyramids of Giza is expected to display them in the future. The golden death mask, in particular, has become a global symbol of ancient Egypt. The discovery also transformed archaeology. Carter's careful method of documentation and preservation set new standards for the field, even if his handling of the mummy itself was less than ideal by modern standards. The find demonstrated the importance of patience, meticulous recording, and scientific rigour in excavation. For Egypt, the discovery of Tutankhamun became a source of national pride and a reminder of the country's ancient greatness. For the wider world, it was a reminder that even in the modern age, there were still wonders to be discovered. Thank you for watching, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. And again, thank you so much for watching.